I'm finally making this video, guys. I'm answering all of your vanilla cake questions. I get asked this question every single day. And actually the reason why I'm making this video, or one of the biggest reasons, because I want to answer this question. So every time someone asks me it, I just send them the link to this video. Why do you add the butter in with the dry ingredients, and why don't you cream the butter and sugar together? So the method I use is called the reverse creaming method. So it's the opposite of creaming the butter and the sugar together. You're kind of just crumbling it in with the dry ingredients. And I do this for a couple reasons. I used to work in a bakery, and when you're in a bakery, you try to not cut corners, but you find ways to make things go quicker, because there's a lot of work to do in a bakery. So one of the reasons why we use the creaming or the reverse creaming method is because it's a lot quicker than using the creaming method. You don't have to wait for the butter and sugar to cream. You can just chuck it in with the dry ingredients and you're done. One of the biggest reasons I also use this method is because, and some of you might disagree, but I find that when you cream the butter and sugar together, the cake comes out a little bit drier. It comes out a little bit fluffier, but my cake method, or it's not, I didn't invent it, but the way I do it, it comes out a little bit more dense, which is good for cakes, and it comes out a little bit more moist as well. And I enjoy cakes that are a little bit more on the dense side, a little bit more moist than the super fluffy dry ones. Again, you might disagree, but that's why I do it the way I do it. I hope that answers that question. I don't think people will stop asking, but there you go. Another really common question is, why don't I use oil and yogurt in my chocolate recipe and I do it in my vanilla? So let me explain to you why I use these ingredients in this recipe. First of all, they're completely different recipes. So the chocolate recipe is not like the vanilla recipe at all. It comes out dense and moist, but it's a different recipe. So that's why it doesn't have those ingredients. But the reason why I use yogurt in this recipe is because, again, it makes the cake a little bit more moist. You can't taste the yogurt, so don't everyone freak out that it's going to come out sour. Now, if you don't have yogurt or you don't want to use yogurt, if you have sour cream in your fridge, you can use that as well. And it's basically because, you know, when you're making cupcakes, say the day before or in the morning, and you're going to be serving them later that day, this will keep them moist throughout the day and kind of stop them from drying out too much. Okay, now that those are out of the way, let's get stuck into a couple of these ingredients. You want to make sure that your milk is at room temperature, super important. This came out of the fridge. I popped it in the microwave for about 20 seconds, get it to room temperature. You want to make sure all your ingredients are at room temperature. So, I know you guys get grossed out by this, but your butter needs to be super soft. I like to put my finger in it. And you don't want it to be melted, but you want it to be super soft. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop all of our dry ingredients into a large mixing bowl. Now, what I'm gonna show you guys today is one batch of this recipe. To make the size cake that we're gonna be making in this video, you're gonna need to make 2 batches of this cake recipe. The reason I split it up is because nobody has bowls bigger than this in their kitchen, and you can't make 2 batches in one bowl. It just won't fit. I've tried, it's a disaster. Now, I don't actually sift my ingredients into my bowl. I just chuck them in there. I don't actually think that it needs it, so we're just gonna throw them in the bowl. So this salt here is pink Himalayan salt or sea salt. There's no specific reason I use this other than it's pink, it's pretty, and it's easier to see on screen, so that's why I use it. It doesn't make a difference what type of salt you use. So today we're gonna be using our hand mixer. You can use a stand mixer for this if you prefer. We're gonna mix all of our dry ingredients together until everything is mixed and well combined. Then we're gonna add our softened butter in there, and we're gonna mix that on low speed until it reaches a crumbly, kind of sand-like texture. Next, we're gonna add our eggs, milk, oil, and our Greek yogurt. Now today we're going to be using some vanilla bean paste because this is a vanilla cake. I actually like to put a lot in there. If you don't have this, you can use vanilla extract. It still has that strong flavor, but you won't get those little specks of vanilla beans. So you want to mix all of that until everything comes together. Now, once there's no dry ingredients showing, you want to stop mixing, scrape down the bowl just to make sure all of the bits at the bottom get mixed in properly. And then we're going to mix for a final 20 seconds on low speed. Our batter is done. What we're going to do is we are going to fill 3 of these 8-inch cake tins up. Now, if you don't have 3 of these handy, you can do them one at a time, it's fine. I'm going to show you guys how to line this with some baking paper. Everybody has their own way of doing this. This is how I do it. So we're going to kind of guesstimate how much paper we're going to need for 3 cake tins. So I'm going to roll out some baking paper, kind of fold it in 3. We're going to use the bottom of the cake tin as a guide to trace a circle around our baking paper, and we're going to cut it out inside the trace, so that way that you don't have any of the pen in the cake baking with the cake. Once you've got all of those cut out, you want to spray your cake tin with some oil and pop your baking paper on the bottom. Now, I found the best way to actually fill your cake tins up is with an ice cream scoop. I use this for a couple reasons. It's one of my favorite tools in the kitchen, actually. So if you do it this way, you scoop into 3 tins, or you can do it one at a time. Everything comes out even and everything bakes at the same time as well. So this is an easier way, and it's much cleaner as well than just pouring it into the cake tin. We're going to pop these in the oven for about 50 to 60 minutes. Now, I like to bake these on a low temperature. It's a little bit different than what a lot of other recipes do. So we're going to bake these on 140 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it will be in the written recipe, which is on my website. So we're going to bake these 50 to 60 minutes. Now, the best way to check if these are done baking is to use a toothpick or a skewer. Put it in the center of the cake. If it comes out with batter, bake it for an extra 10 minutes. Now, the cake shouldn't actually color, and this is the same technique that I use for my cupcakes. That's how I get those nice, bright, beautiful colors. Our cakes have baked beautifully, no colorization on the top. They've baked quite flat as well. On that low temperature, they tend not to have that oval shape when they bake, and they don't crack as well. So we're going to level them anyway. Now, what we're going to use to level them is something called a cake leveler. Now, before we do cut these, I have chilled these in the fridge overnight. So I baked them yesterday and we're going to decorate today. But if you don't have overnight, chill them for about 4 hours. The reason I like to chill the cakes when I work with them is because they're easier to cut, number one. And when you're working with chilled cakes, it's much easier to work with. There's no risk of them sliding around when you're frosting them, and there's no risk of them tearing as well, which has happened to me. So we're going to be slicing these cakes into 2 layers. So 3 cakes, we're going to have 6 layers at the end of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the bottom. We're going to put that away, and then we're going to trim the second layer. This is my Swiss meringue buttercream frosting. I added some vanilla bean paste in it. I added a lot. So it kind of looks like I've mixed ash into it, but it tastes delicious. So we've just whipped some of that in. This is what we're going to be using for this vanilla cake. It's all vanilla. So crumb coating is basically filling the cake. We're going to coat it with some more frosting on the outside, and then that acts as kind of like a barrier when we put our second layer of frosting on, so you don't see the cake crumbs on that outer layer. I've got my handy cake spinny thing here. I've got my grip thingy here. We're going to pop that on top of our cake spinny, and we're going to add a 8-inch cake board on top. Now, you can use a bigger cake board. I like to use the same size cake board as the cakes so that it's not showing when we finish the cake. We're going to begin by adding a little dollop of frosting on top of our cake board. Use a little offset spatula to kind of spread that around. Pop your first layer of cake on top of that. That frosting is going to act like a glue, and it's going to stop our cake from sliding around. We're going to pipe a circle of frosting around that cake layer. We're going to fill that in, and we're going to use our offset spatula to spread that around as evenly as you can before you add your next layer of cake. You're going to repeat that until you get to the last layer, and then we're going to add a dollop of frosting on top, We're gonna pipe some frosting around the sides. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then we're gonna use our little offset spatula to kind of spread that around. Now today I've got my bench scraper or my cake scraper. We're gonna scrape the frosting around the outside of the cake and on the top. Get it as neat as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm a perfectionist, so I like to get it as neat as I can. Once you've got all that done, we're gonna pop this in the fridge, preferably overnight, but 3 to 4 hours. Get it super, super chilled before we move on to decorating. So our cake has chilled. For those of you who don't know this, at this stage, if we leave it like this, it's called a naked cake. So you can kind of see some of the layers through the first layer of frosting. And I kind of like the way it looks, so I'm gonna leave it like this. To make our white chocolate ganache, we're gonna be adding some chocolate to a large microwave-safe bowl. We're gonna be adding a little bit of cream and some butter. We're gonna microwave this for about 20 seconds at a time, mixing each time until it's nice and smooth. Now, because this is a vanilla cake, I'm gonna add a little bit of vanilla bean paste in there as well. Mix it in, and that is our white chocolate ganache. To finish off the decorations for this cake, we're going to be drizzling some of that white chocolate ganache over the sides. Once you've got all that drizzled, you're gonna pipe some vanilla bean buttercream frosting. Now this is my Swiss meringue buttercream frosting, and I'm using a Wilton 1M tip to pipe some swirls on top of my cake. So our vanilla cake is finished. It looks gorgeous. It is very vanilla-y. What we're gonna do is we're gonna cut into this and I'm gonna taste it. I know you guys liked that last time, so I'm gonna give it a go again. And I do expect another like for this. Ta-da! Now that looks like a gorgeous vanilla cake. All right, let's get stuck into this cake. Okay, cake and frosting. Delicious. Okay guys, so I hope I answered all of your questions for this cake. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you have any more questions about this recipe, leave them in the comments down below. I'll try and answer as many as I can, but hopefully I answered the questions that you guys have been asking. If you want to grab the recipe for this cake, it's going to be on my website, thescramline.com. A link for that is in the box below. Now, like I said, you can use this cake in any color, in any flavor. It's a very, very versatile recipe. Now, if you're new to this channel and you're watching for the first time, welcome. Make sure you hit the subscribe button because I upload 2 new videos a week for you guys. So that way you keep up to date with all of the latest videos. And if you enjoyed watching this video and you want to see more of these videos, make sure you hit the like button and I'll make more for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you all in the next episode of The Scramline.